slight technical glitch, but hopefully we're back and you guys can see everything and hear everything clearly. We are going to continue with a few more questions before we wrap up. I see there's a couple of more questions on Slido. I would just like to address one of the questions that is on there. And that question is posted for both Jillery and Sheikh Maki. The question is the obsession with fair skin, what's the history of that? Do you think it's a post-colonial baggage that we have, or is there something else to it? Sheikh, would you like to answer this question first?
Sure. This is definitely this is some of the effects of colonialism, imperialism that we're seeing. But it's also a choice. You know, we can't just say that because, you know, this was kind of imposed in a way or propagated that now at this junction and this day and time that we're perpetuating and continuing this. This is absolutely at this point as a Muslim, it's completely a choice. So I think once we start to realize that we're choosing to embrace something or not, I mean, this racial construct, we're choosing to embrace whiteness, is there absolutely a choice? Then I think we may start to look at how we deal with it differently.
Yeah, agreed.
That's a great point.
I think we should also consider how these kind of subtle messages or the microaggressions, how they might have an impact on especially our young people and our children. How do they see their self-worth if they're constantly being told something about, you know, their light skin, and sometimes or their dark skin, and sometimes it's not this is bad, but it's always this is good, this is beautiful, this is lovely, this is and you know, I've seen that show up even in my own community. Like I said, coming from Latin America, we do not associate with our African heritage. My father, who looks Somali, you would swear on your life that he was Somali, will tell you in a joke, I am the darkest version of white. And these are kind of the ways that we speak, right? My sister has light brown eyes, and all of my life we were told, oh, it's because your great-great-grandfather had some French in it. A drop of French, we want to claim. But we don't claim Africanness, right? Between my sister and I, she's lighter and I'm darker, we were nicknamed La Negra y la Blanca, the black and the white, right? So these are the ways that it comes up, and it does something to young people as they grow up. It sends them a message about what is beautiful and how do they relate to that beauty. And like Sheikh Mahi said, it's a choice.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice. That's a great takeaway from this, that at the end of the day, whether it is post-colonial baggage or not, today it's a choice that we're making.
We can blame the British for all of the ills in the world, but like how are we holding on to that and continuing that legacy?
Right.
It's an important question to ask ourselves.
Great. So I'm just gonna ask one last question before we wrap up, and the question is, we have a lot of ethnic Islamic centers. Do you think that's a problem? And what do you think is stopping us from creating centers that are non-ethnic?
You can go ahead, Sister Julia.
I don't think it's a problem in and of itself. I mean, I think that it's healthy or a natural reaction, especially for immigrant communities, to want to find cultural spaces or spaces where they feel at home or, you know, understood if it's a language issue, and especially if you're going out into a world that doesn't immediately seem friendly to you. I understand that inclination, but I encourage us to think about, in creating those spaces, what other ways are you sending message of supremacy, right? And so what does that do? You know, I'll give Panama as an example. We have, where I'm from, we have a healthy Muslim community. Most are from the Arab world, Palestinian, Lebanese, or Indian from Gujarat. In those mosques, women are not allowed. There's a Sunni community mostly. Women are not allowed for the most part. And all of the khutbahs are done in their language. So what does that do for somebody who is Panamanian, who speaks Spanish, sometimes English, who has questions or wants to know about Islam. Our mosques are meant to be also community centers. They're meant to be places where people congregate and come together to learn about the beauty of Islam. And like I said, Islam belongs to all of us. So I think that really it's about trying to find a balance, and also acknowledging that in this context, a lot of our young people unfortunately don't retain language in the way that we need them to or want them to, but we want them to hold on to faith, right? And so they're grasping for ways to hold on to their deen, but understand how to hold on to their deen in this context that looks very different from the context of where our parents come from, right? So I think it's important for a number of different reasons to find ways to make them inclusive. And how beautiful I feel when I walk into a mosque and somebody who looks like they're from that community greets me and says, "Welcome, I haven't seen you here before." That rarely happens. That rarely happens. And I think I see my brothers and my Black brothers and sisters who feel that same way, right? And so even in the absence of like an overt racism, it's those subtleties that take place that tell you you're not welcome here.
Yeah, I want to say that we would not be having this conversation. We would not be Muslim, period, if the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, took this approach. There would be nothing to talk about. If he said, I got my little clique over here, and this is my tribe, and this is my people, and we're just gonna do our thing, and this beautiful religion, this is all us, and just for us, we're gonna live in this bubble, and that's it. And nobody here would have anything to talk about. None of these places would be Muslim. That message would never have been shared. So if we look at that reality, then it is like absolutely not an option to say that I need this basis to be, for example, whatever particular ethnic basis. Sure, I think that embracing, not in the colorblind approach. We don't want to do that and pretend that race doesn't exist and people's experiences are not real things. We want to acknowledge those. So how do we do that? What's a practical way we could do that? I always think of like a cultural exchange. Why not have in our centers, in our masjids, in our centers, how can different cultures so that we can understand them, so that we can appreciate them. That's the beginning of breaking down that barrier of fear of, oh my, this is scary, it's taking over, I don't know, that the bad neighborhoods, thing, all that stuff. How do we deal with this? This is one way we can deal with it. Intentional, very intentional. We're going to learn about, other cultures, because it's not just even anti-Blackness. It just goes to a whole nother spectrum of things. Anti-Blackness is its own, it's a very problematic issue in our communities. But it's like, if this is, I think about it like this. How do we identify our centers, right? It's the Afghan center. It's the Iranian center. That's the Indo-Pak center. If that is the way that we need to identify, we don't even need to know the name. We just need to know the ethnicity. That's the complete identity. Then we've gotten very far from the Islamic identity, And why not? We need to emphasize on, what does that, if we're Mahdi, then we need to be about Imam Mahdi, and we need to embody those, what that is. Cultural exchange can be something like, when learning about, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, for example, this tragic incident that Native Americans experienced. Learning about Palestine and what's going on in Palestine in that culture. Eating foods from different cultures, you know what I mean? Not always doing the same exact things, like being able to appreciate, this is what this kind of food is. Okay, we're going to eat biryani. We're also going to have, has cheese. You're going to have, this, we're going to have mantu, we're going to whatever. We're going to exchange of culture and learn more, not just do, but also learn. These are some historic figures in this culture. These are African Americans who were inventors. These were African Americans who were scientists. These are African Americans who, so many of the creations that we take for granted the traffic light, the things like that. So many things. Peanut butter. Let's learn about this culture. Let it be an ongoing conversation. Everybody has to be there at the table to learn about the cultures of others. Then we begin to appreciate. Wow, this food is good. Wow, this person, they have an amazing hero. Then we can start to love each other. That begins to set the tone, and it's not just based off of that one bubble of ethnic culture.
I think, sorry if I can just say one last thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think a reflection on the fact that Islam in America in particular has been spread by Black Muslims is a really important acknowledgement. And in the same way that I demand of Black activists who are not Muslim to not erase Brother Malcolm's Muslimness, I demand the same of the Muslim community to not erase his Blackness, because we will champion him when we're talking about justice. We will do all these things, but we won't even acknowledge. Same thing with Muhammad Ali, right? We won't acknowledge the fact that they were Black and Muslim, and they held those things with high esteem. And so it's important for us to not erase them in that way.
Thank you so much, Hillary. I wish we could address more of these questions, but unfortunately we are out of time. And I just want to thank Hillary as well as Sheikh Mekki for your insight. And I know I have learned a lot today. I know we have a lot of work to do, but I think this is where hopefully it'll start with conversations. And I want to thank you both for your insight and your profound words. I would like to end in prayer, and I was hoping, Sheikh Mekki, if you could lead us in that closing prayer so that we could end this program today. Thank you.
Inshallah. I'm going to also end on a final thought.
Absolutely.
Please consider having welcoming committees at your centers. I think that's a necessity. One of the number one reasons, why people feel turned away or not welcome is nobody's doing that. So there has to be on a culture, on a community level, where everyone understands that. What does welcoming look like? The sunnah of the Prophet was to ask people your name, where you're from, to do those things, to always exchange contact information, but also at the same time, there's just to be dedicated people who that's their job. When somebody comes, they're the first person. Oh, so they introduce you to people. They tell you where things are. That kind of thing. That welcoming committee is very helpful. And the last thought that I'd like to leave, and I'm sorry for continuing going on. Excuse me. I would like to leave us with this thought. A racist is an enemy of Imam Mahdi. Let that digest. A racist is an ally of Shaitan. We have to let that sink in. The words of Imam Ali were stand against the zalim and stand with the mazloom. And so you're either following this advice of Imam Ali or you are an enemy of Imam Ali. I think we have to look at the ugliness to understand where we want to stand, where we choose to stand, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Close with dua faraj, inshallah, and let's renew our commitment to the 12th Imam, Imam Mahdi, Ajalallah Ta'ala Faraj al-Sharif, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten his reappearance and make us all of his A'wan and his Ansar, inshallah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma kulli waliyika al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توأ وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى